her nickname is Lesbian Jesus. Like, think about a Christian Southern girl.
Right.
And the first woman she dates is Lesbian Jesus. I was like, are you allowed to say this? Am I allowed to reference this?
Hey y'all, welcome back to Made It Out. Today I'm here with content creator, host of the Scrubbing In podcast, Becca Tilley. And we are talking about her coming out journey and how she kept a relationship hidden for years before coming out. Becca, tell me about you. Growing up, what was your childhood like?
I grew up in the South. I'm one of 5 kids, so I'm the second oldest of 5. I grew up very Southern, very Christian, went to a Baptist school, Christian school my whole life, graduated with like 30 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I went to college about an hour from home in a really small town. I went to Louisiana Tech for a year and I hated it. I didn't drink at the time at all. Like I was when I say like being a Christian was like my identity. And so I was like, going to college and everyone going to like frat parties and drinking. I joined a sorority just because, cheers. Just because it's what my friends were doing.
Right.
And I hated every moment of it. Like I didn't want to go out. I felt like I judged everyone who got drunk. It was just such a...
It was like too much partying.
It was too much. I just was like not into it. So... After my first year, my brother-in-law got drafted to play football in San Diego when the Chargers were still in San Diego. And so they invited me to move out with them. And I was 19 and I was like, had my bags packed the next day. I was like, y'all cannot take back this offer. And I've been in California ever since.
Growing up in the South, what kind of messaging did you hear about gay people?
That it was bad.
Yeah.
It was just like very direct. There wasn't much sugarcoating about it. I think now and to be honest, I would imagine if I went back to some of those places where I heard that maybe I would hope that maybe there's a different take on it now and a different view on it now, because I think that especially during that time growing up, it was like I really didn't know anyone gay, especially a woman. I was not around lesbians. I never saw it. And what I knew of them was like the PE coach on Glee.
Yeah.
Totally. Sue Sylvester.
Yes.
And so you can imagine if I was so anti-drinking and partying, how I felt about, homosexuality. I was very strong in my views on that. But in my mind, I always think about this where I'm like, I don't care about anyone else's sexuality or who they're dating or what they do, because I don't feel like I'm having to hide anything anymore. And I think when you feel like you're struggling with something you're hiding, you're so much more inclined to have a strong opinion on it, because why does it matter what other people are doing or who they're dating or who they love or who they're sleeping with? Really, like if you think about it, why would it bother you unless you're struggling with something on your own?
Totally.
Even if you're like, this is part of my religion, okay, mind your business.
Yeah.
And believe what you want to believe. But like, you don't have control over what someone else is doing. So now that I've had that perspective shift and like, I'm not struggling with that, even though it's probably buried so deep that I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's how I think about it. So when people are extremely homophobic, I go, all right, maybe you'll come examine. No judgment, but when you're ready. It's just like, if you're happy and comfortable with yourself, you don't care about what other people are doing.
Totally.
It's just the facts. Like the only time where I feel upset about like, or compare myself on something on social media, it's because I feel like jealous or like something about what they posted makes me feel like jealous or insecure. I'm projecting because I feel insecure about it.
Yeah.
When I don't care, I'm like, oh,
scroll right past
it.
Yeah. So what was that like, that move? If you were like so Christian, so like moving to California, it's like super,
I know,
kind of not, it's like kind of culture shock
that I'm
moving from the
thinking
South
about
to California.
It may as well have been New York. Like I was like, we have moved to the big city, you guys. We're in downtown San Diego, high rise. And I remember one of our friends that we would always be in the hot tub with was were these two gay guys, and they were so nice, and we loved every time they were down there, and we'd get to chat and hang out with them. And I remember him talking about his experience of growing up very conservative and coming out, and I remember thinking like, wow, this guy's so nice. Like, gay people aren't as horrible as it seems I've been told, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember having that kind of culture shift, but I was still very much, you know, we moved into a more suburbia part of San Diego and found a church there, was very, you know, committed and in it. And then when my sister and brother-in-law moved back, I was like, I'm going to stay and try and figure it out on my own. And if I can't figure it out, I'll go back to the South. Mm-hmm. And I made it work. And that's when my friend from high school nominated me to go on The Bachelor.
Okay, yeah, that was going to be my next question is, I know you mentioned you get asked this a lot. Like,
what? Why
did you go on The Bachelor if you knew you were gay? So I want to give you the opportunity to answer that.
I didn't know I was gay. I'm always like, I didn't. I really truly think if I knew that about myself, I wouldn't have done that twice, especially.
Right.
Like, I think once would have been enough, and then I would have been like, that was fun. But I think growing up, the way that I did, any part of me that I can look back in hindsight and see like, oh, maybe that was a crush, or maybe I had feelings for that person, or maybe that was an emotional connection with a woman. Mm-hmm. I just thought that was just normal, and that's how people felt about their, you know, friends or people in their lives. And I still liked guys. And so I just kind of was like, that part was, it wasn't even like I pushed it down. I think it was just never even an option for me.
Yeah.
And so when I met Hayley, which I know I'm jumping, but it was kind of like an aha moment that I didn't question it. But I look back and I'm like, there were certain friendships where I felt like territorial, mm-hmm. where it's like they would go out with a guy and I'd be like, why are you going out? Like, why am I not enough? Like, are we not having a good time? But it was so wrong in what I was taught that it was just never even, like I hear people say like, I just pushed that side down. I just ignored it. I didn't even feel like I ignored it. I just felt like I kind of thought it was normal until I realized like, oh, that actually meant something.
Right.
You know? So I didn't go on The Bachelor knowing that I liked women. I went on The Bachelor because I hadn't found the guy I liked.
Right.
And I was like, maybe this is all in the plan and I'm supposed to meet this guy in this really crazy way.
Yeah.
And then I got dumped twice.
Yes.
On national television.
That's like, it's like, you know, those moments in life where it's like, okay, maybe I should reassess.
Yeah.
And that's what you needed.
Yeah. It was fun. Like it was so unexpected. I was so used to being pursued by men. It was like, don't ever chase the guy, you know, let them pursue you. That was how I was taught. So I remember when my friend nominated me for The Bachelor and I got a call. I didn't know she had nominated me. I just got a call. And then I texted her and I was like, I just got a call from The Bachelor. And she was like, oh my gosh, I just submitted your application this week. Like, I can't believe they already called you. She's like, you have to go meet with them. And in my mind, I thought, I know enough about this show to know that it is not at all how I want to date. Like, competing with other women, chasing a guy on TV. And she was like, Becca, out of all the people, they called you. Like, you have to just go meet with them. So I go meet with them. Of course, the casting producers are like, we think you'll go so far. And I'm like, oh my God, they love me. And I kind of said, why not? I loved the idea of traveling. I had written on this like vision board that we did at work, I want to travel the world. And I was like, The Bachelor travels the world. They're in helicopters. They're all over the place. And that season we stayed in Middle America because he was a farmer. So my traveling was limited. I did go places I had never been before. I
never thought you would ever go.
Never thought I'd go there. But it was such a great experience. Like, I'm so glad that I can look back and be like, those are two of the best times of my life.
Yeah, I'm sure. So when did you have the moment like, oh, fuck, I think I'm gay?
When I met Hayley.
Okay. Yeah. So how far after did you go back into dating men after The Bachelor and everything was just back to normal? You're going to church. You're living in San Diego.
I wasn't really going to church anymore just because it just wasn't a priority for me. And my sisters lived with me at the time, both my younger sisters, and they're both gay. And when my youngest sister, Hank, came out to me, it was the first time where my mind was like, everything that you've thought about homosexuality, everything you've been taught your whole life was out the door. Like, I just was like, how am I supposed to think this about someone that I love this much?
Yeah.
And then my other sister, she didn't really come out. I just kind of watched a relationship form in front of me. I was like, they're touching each other in ways that are not friendly. Like, you know, like head scratches. I'm like, I don't do that with my friends. And so I kind of got to see the world through their eyes, but never found myself being in it. You know, I loved Callie in Arizona on Grays. I was always rooting for them, loved their relationship, but I was like, that doesn't mean anything. Right. You know? Yeah. I don't think, but I think it does. And then I had walked into the living room one day when my sisters were living with me, and they were watching one of Hayley's music videos, her Feelings music video.
Oh my gosh, foreshadow.
She is so cocky in that video. And I was like, who is that? I was like, she thinks she's so cool. And they were like, oh, like her name's Hayley Kiyoko. She like does like lesbian, like she's one of the like first like lesbian pop artists that's, you know. I was like, she thinks she's way too cool. So I just kind of walked into the kitchen, didn't think anything of it. So my friend, like 2 days later, sends me an invite to this party, and it was like her album release / birthday party.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, this is so crazy. Caroline and Hank love her. And she's like, bring them. She told me to bring whoever. So I had invited them, and I was like, y'all want to go to this party? And they were all for it. And then both of them had to work or something came up, and they both couldn't go. And so we get to the party, and Hayley comes up, and you know when you just notice someone, and looking back, I can see remember like noticing her.
Yeah.
She kind of ignored me, said hey to Brittany, and then walked into the party. And we get in there, and she comes up and says hey. Later on, I find out she's like a huge Bachelor fan.
Oh my gosh!
She knew exactly who I was.
She was trying to play it cool.
She did try to play it cool. Poor thing. She didn't. And she walked up to me, and I jokingly said something like, oh, you never messaged me back. And she was like, you messaged me? And I was like, no, I'm just kidding. Like, nice to meet you. So we talked, and she was like asking my friend Brittany, she's like, is Becca into girls? And Britt's like, no, but her sister is. Hank was single at the time. And she was like, we'll have to introduce you. And so I said the same thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, you'll love my sister. She's so cute. She's a little young, but like you'll love her. And so the next day, Hayley DMs me, and she's like, sliding into your DMs.
Wow.
And I was like, you know the feeling you get when you're waiting on a text from someone that you like? I had that feeling. And so I was like, why do I have this feeling about her DMing me?
Yeah.
So I still played it off. I was like, oh yeah, like I have to introduce you to my sister. And she's like, are you sure you're not into girls? And I was like, I'm emotionally unavailable to everybody, I think is what my famous line was.
But did you clock it right then? Like, did you know in the moment that you were having those feelings?
I think I knew, but I also, in hindsight, I think I know more, like looking back. But I think in the moment, I was like, oh, she's cute. Like I would love to, if Hank dated someone like this, I would love, to have, she was so fun.
Right.
And so we had made plans to set everyone up to go get drinks together so that they could meet in like a group setting. And everyone bailed. She texted me and she's like, well, do you still want to get drinks? And I got so nervous because I was like, I know she's into me. Am I going to be leading her on? And then I was like, I was leaving, and Hank was on the couch, and I was like, I've never been out with a lesbian one-on-one. I was like, what do I do? I was like, what if she thinks am I leading her on? And she was like dying laughing. And so I go and I Ubered there. We went to Chateau Marmont, which was she thought I was like a socialite and loved going to like fancy places like this, but I had never even been to Chateau. Yeah. I was like, I love Olive Garden. Like, you didn't have to go this hard, but I appreciate it. And we talked for like 4 hours. Like we shut it down, like we left, and I got home and I didn't sleep all night. I was like, I had butterflies. I was like, that was so different. I've never had that connection with somebody. She was like, I don't want to scare you, but I really like you. And I was like, yeah, I don't really know what to think. I've never felt this before. And this was definitely different for me too. So we all ended up going out the next night. She comes to meet us after rehearsal, which was like a huge deal knowing her now, because she was like on the east side and came all the way to the bungalow in Santa Monica. It was like a commitment.
That's like a 2-hour drive for anybody who's not in LA.
Yeah. And we're all so drunk when she gets there. So she shows up sober. She comes and I'm sitting on a bench with my friends and she's like squatted down. And then I have a friend right here on the other side of me and she's like holding my hand behind the friend's back. And I lean over to my other friend. I'm like, we're holding hands. We're holding hands. So she drives us back. We all are walking upstairs to go to the apartment and I pull her back and I kiss her.
Oh my God, bold.
Yeah, it was really bold. But like I had a lot of tequila. Like it was like I felt very bold.
Hey, you knew what you needed.
I knew what needed to happen and I did it.
So you jumped right in.
Yeah. I really
like after that, were you freaking out? Like, did you have a gay
No.
panic moment? No, you never did.
No. It was so like, oh my gosh, I've never felt this before. It was so instant that I was like, I didn't even question it.
Yeah.
And so it was so nice because I also was 29. You know, I wasn't like going through this awkward phase in life. I was very confident in who I was and she is so confident in who she is. And I think that made it really easy to be like, I'm going with it.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
I do think that's like a gift of coming out later. You're just kind of like, okay, now like a light turns on and you're like, I don't have to explain this to anybody.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Like this is what's been missing. And also what beautiful timing of everything. How like, I feel like the universe just always gives you what you need when you need it. And how like your sisters came out and you were able to kind of deal with your faith and that struggle like prior because of your sisters. And then it's like, okay, now you were open enough to be able to like
be open for myself.
Exactly.
I really feel grateful for that because I don't know if I hadn't had my sisters, if I wouldn't have had that calm and like, because in my mind, I thought like, okay, if everyone else hates me for this, I have my sisters.
Yeah.
You know, which is like a really comforting feeling, especially when it's family. But all my friends, of course, I was like, so I kissed a girl and they're like, what? Like every single one of them. And they're like, well, how was it? You know, it's like, it was great. Like it wasn't just like I kissed a girl and I liked it, Katy Perry. It was like I kissed a girl and this might be something, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was crazy. And then she left for tour that next week. We saw each other.
Oh, wow.
Well, the really comical thing that's like so lesbian of this story is that Monday night I went over to her house and she was leaving for tour on Tuesday. And her phone was broken. So her neighbor downstairs was trying to fix her phone and we're just like hanging out. And her neighbor comes up and she's like, I can't get your phone to turn on now. I don't know what I did, but like I can't get it to work. And Hayley's like, I have to have an alarm. Like I have to wake up tomorrow to go on tour. And she's
Looks
like,
can
you
have to stay?
She's like, would you mind staying? Like I know this sounds bad, but like I really need an alarm. And I'm like, you don't have an old watch or like a computer? Don't you have a computer? There's probably an alarm on there. And she's like, no, like I can't, I tried everything. And I'm kind of like, okay, I was more so like, I'm going to have to text my sisters and be like, I'm not coming home and they're going to die. You know, they're going to roast me. And they're like, wow, Becca, have you heard of a U-Haul? And I was like, she needed an alarm. She needed me. So yeah, we stayed the night together and then she left for tour the next day for like her headlining tour, you know? So she was gone for months and it was such a whirlwind because it was like literally falling in love for the first, so I had never been in love before.
Yeah.
And I was like falling in love and everyone would talk about falling in love. And I'm like, I don't think I have that in me. Like what y'all are talking about, never felt. Like, I'm always like, why is he calling me so much? You know? And my friends, like I had a boyfriend who was just like amazing, such an amazing human, like everything I wanted on paper. And I didn't know how to be in a relationship. And so he would call and I'm like, we just hung out. Like, what's he calling? My friend's like, it's your boyfriend. Like, what do you mean?
It's normal.
Yeah. Like, oh, I see. So you got to be available emotionally. I see. But then with Hayley, it was like, when is she going to text me?
Right.
You know, I doubt that her plan was to fall in love right before she went on her headlining tour, but locked it in like I had to do.
You said, oh, you're going on tour?
Yeah. Let's have a conversation about what we are real quick.
Okay, well, you guys are together, but you're not together exactly out in public.
Right. Well, so Bachelor Nation, as we call it, has always been very hetero, Christian, conservative.
Right.
And that's where a huge portion of my following came from. And I didn't really know how to navigate that part. So when we first started dating, I felt like I don't immediately want to start saying like I'm dating this girl now. You know, it felt like so abrupt. And also, you know, I do come from a very different background than Hayley, and her nickname is Lesbian Jesus. Like, think about a Christian Southern girl.
Right.
And the first woman she dates is Lesbian Jesus. I was like, are you allowed to say this? Am I allowed to reference this? And so I was just so like, how do I navigate this, you know? And I wanted to take my time and also make sure that we liked each other. I mean, we fell in love really fast, but like, can we even make this work while you're gone? Like, you have such a different life than me in terms of you're pursuing this dream, and do you want to be in a committed relationship with one person? You know, it's let's figure it out before I just come out publicly, you know? And so, and then it was like, what will my parents say? I come from, you know, they're conservative and super Christian, and, you know, what will everyone say? My persona on The Bachelor, I mean, not just my persona, but who I was this virgin girl that came on the show. People would text me or message me and be like, you're such a role model to my daughter and to me. Like, it's so nice to see someone who's on a show like this, who has morals and, you know, is confident in who they are. And
that's such a pressure.
So much pressure that to the point when I was dating and I had sex for the first time, my first thought was like, what are people going to think? I think I did it to myself. Like, I don't know that anyone cared as much as I cared about what they thought about me, but it was very heavy for me. So I had a lot of weight in that. And I actually remember my parents found out. We met in April, started dating. And then in July, Hayley got offered to perform with Taylor Swift on her Reputation tour. And Hayley, her mom, and then Taylor and her mom were in Taylor's green room or dressing room. Okay. And I was in Hayley's green room, and I was just like scrolling through my footage. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I have a video of my girlfriend on stage with Taylor Swift. Like, what the heck? And my mom texts me and she's like, do you like Hayley more than a friend? And literally within 5 seconds, Hayley's security guard comes in and he's like, hey, Taylor wants to meet you and say hi. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, okay. So I literally don't remember what I talked to Taylor about, because all I could think about was like, I have to call my mom.
Oh my God, that's a lot. Yeah. And that's like the highest high and like a whoa.
Yeah, like scary.
Oh my gosh.
So Taylor's great.
I think.
Yeah, she's great. I remember great things. And then I went on the bus and had a really hard conversation with my mom.
Wow.
And it was really challenging. And I feel like we've both done our best. And I'm so grateful, you know, to her, because I know it was hard. And I think my parents, it was like they had this, every parent has an expectation for a child. But I think especially me, I was like, I didn't have curfew because my mom was like, she was at Bible study with her friend. You know, it was like they had such different expectations for me, I think. Right. And so I was always so aware of how they thought of me and making them proud and making sure that like I made my family look good and didn't do anything that like, you know, took away from that.
Yeah.
And so it was like the craziest. It's a great story to tell now, but it was really crazy.
Wild.
And Hayley and I had a lot of conversations about being public and being private. And she was like, I am so proud and I've worked so hard to be proud of who I am that I don't want to feel like I'm back in the closet. And I'm like, I also don't want you to feel like that. But being from The Bachelor, it is really hard. Like most of my followers are conservative, you know, and it's going to be shocking to them that this person that they viewed as a role model is now dating a woman. Like it's going to be a weird backlash. I'm like, you're so loved for who you are. Yeah. The reason that you feel so comfortable and confident in who you are is because you're so loved because of that and for that. And you've made so many people feel seen and confident in themselves because of that. But I don't come from the same world. But I made a promise. I was like, I never want you to feel hidden. So it will always be that it's private in the terms of it's not on social media. But if we were out and someone came up and said, oh my gosh, I love your podcast, and I was with Hayley, I'd be like, oh, this is my girlfriend, Hayley.
Got it.
Or I'd say, I never said like, this is my friend, Hayley. I'd just be like, this is Hayley, you know? And having the podcast and having to navigate pronouns, that was really challenging.
Wow.
Because people knew I was in a relationship and I just didn't use pronouns.
Oh my gosh.
Her nickname was 95P because we had a live show and it was a truth or drink game. And someone said, what's the percentage that you're going to marry the person you're dating? And Hayley's in the audience. I can literally it felt like a spotlight went down to her. And I was like, oh my God, if I drink, we're going to get in a fight. And if I say something too low, we're going to get in a fight.
Oh no. So and you're live. This is on the spot.
I don't have time. This is not like we can edit this out. I'm like 95%. So everyone went crazy. And I was like, oh my God, now I'm stressed. Like, am I getting married now? You know, I was like, are they going to start playing like a wedding march? So that became her nickname on the podcast. But I never used pronouns. Hilarious. So like we'd be talking about a story and I'd be like, yeah, 95P did this. And then 95P said, like, it was so hard.
And you did that for how long?
4 years.
4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Was there contention in those times around like it still having to be that way?
At the beginning, there were those conversations of like, why I feel like you're ashamed of me. I feel hidden and I don't want to feel that way. And I was like, I get it, but I'm not ready for this. So if this is too much for you, or if you feel like you want to be with someone who's out and, you know, ready to do that, I understand. Mm-hmm. But it was like, we both chose to meet each other.
Yeah.
And then by the time we came out, we were pretty comfortable being private. Like, I was like, we don't really have to do this if you don't want to, you know? Like, She was the same way. Like, she's like, I'm fine with this. But then I was in her music video for the girls, and it was kind of like a play on The Bachelor, and I came out at the end, and it just felt like I didn't feel scared anymore. Like, in my mind, I thought, if I come out, whatever, if people want to unfollow me or they don't like me, whatever, I'm fine with that. I had been in therapy long enough to feel comfortable in that.
Yeah.
And I also was just ready.
Yeah.
I didn't want to feel weighed down, and I literally physically lost weight after we came out. Like, it was like I physically lost weight without doing anything. Just, I think I was carrying it for so long, and I didn't realize how free I would feel until I did it.
Yeah. What do you think were some of the things that you did to get to a point where you were ready? Like, what happened within you? What was the shift?
I think it was time. And I genuinely think therapy and having the hard conversations with, you know, my parents and people that I loved, like having those hard conversations of eventually I am going to come out. And, you know, I think there was a lot of fear with my family of like, what will people say? Are they going to be mean? Is it going to be harder for you? I don't think anyone wants life to be harder for their kid. And I think there was a lot of fear around that. And I was like, I'm fine if they have opinions on everything.
Yeah.
Like, I could literally say, like, I like Dr. Pepper, and they're like, how do you not like Coke? How do you not like what? You know, it's like people will get upset about everything. So in my mind, I kind of got to a place where I go, there's probably a lot of things that they wouldn't like that I do.
Sure.
You know? So I should be able to publicly share the greatest love I've ever, like probably the greatest love I'll ever experience in my lifetime, and publicly share that while I have this. And I actually read the book, 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Oh, love that book. That
literally changed my life. Because all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I'm living my life for other people and like what they're going to say. And then what I'm going to get to an age where I'm old and I don't get to be who I am because I was scared of, like, I'm still living the life I'm living.
Right.
So it's not like I'm not changing anything about myself. So I'm literally living for these people instead of myself.
Yeah.
And it was like such an aha moment. And I don't know if it came with time, therapy, but I finally was just at peace with the fact that the people who matter will stay and the people who don't will go.
Yeah. What was the feedback?
Oh my gosh, it was so positive. I cried for like a week straight because I couldn't, I felt hopeful that our podcast listeners, we have such an amazing podcast community that I was like, I know they're going to be with me because they knew, you know?
Yeah.
I had this confidence in them. And then everything on top of it was just so unexpected that it was like the greatest response I could have hoped for. And I was like, oh, it'll be 50-50. I'm going to get messages that are like, you're going to hell. And then I'm going to get messages that are like, this is amazing. I'm so happy for you. But it was 90%.
Wow.
Happy.
Isn't that so great when you just like are yourself and you just
give people, it made me realize like you have to give people a chance. And I had already anticipated what they were going to say and do and how they were going to react. And it made me realize that sometimes you just got to give people a chance. And sometimes it might take people time, but I think people that maybe always thought like me, and if they loved me and they followed me and they liked everything about me, that seeing me happy, they were like, oh, wow. Like, that's all we wanted for her. Yeah. You know? So, yeah, it was cool.
Wow. So where are you at now?
Well, Hayley and I just celebrated 6 years together.
Wow.
It's so crazy. I was such a commitment phobe. Like, I was so scared of commitment. In my mind, I thought, if I am with someone long term, like, should we have separate rooms and sleep in separate beds? Like, I'm supposed to sleep in the same bed with the same person. And now when Hayley's gone for a night, I'm like, oh, this is horrible. But we just celebrated 6 years, and we have always had separate places, but we stay together every night. So in my mind, we've lived together. We've just had two places, you know, which was really nice, like splitting the stuff. But she actually this week just moved in with me. So we're officially living together. Wow. I've been like, hey, pick up the napkin on the table. Is this going to be... is this a habit? No, but it's been actually hilarious. And we're like, it's so recent that there's still boxes, and it's like, where are all of our clothes going to go? Which is truly one of the best parts of dating a woman is like the shared wardrobe. 100%. Wow. It's great. Yeah. So we're great. It's so weird to still be like obsessed with someone after so long for me, you know, because I literally thought I couldn't even fall in love. So to be with someone after 6 years and still feel excited when they come home from work is just blows my mind. Yeah. It's like, this is what people were talking about. Yeah. Like I get the hype. Like y'all were right about it. It's pretty cool. I love that.
What advice do you have for someone who is going through something like this, still like closeted and maybe has a relationship that they're in and they're struggling on how to handle both?
I think just take your time. Like, I was so happy that I didn't feel pressured to come out before I was ready. Like, it felt so good to do it when I was ready, you know? And I had so much peace about it and confidence and knew that coming out wasn't going to be the end of the world. And I think for some people, it feels like it's going to be the end of the world. And I'm like, just take your time. Like, do it when you want to do it. And also know that you have the gay community is like the warmest, most welcoming community. And you have so many people who are ready to like embrace you and welcome you. And I think there's so much fear of people walking away, but there's so many. My co-host in a weird comment the other day said, one person's goodbye is another person's hello. And I love that because it's like people might walk away, but there's so many people who are ready to have you. Yeah. You know,
ready to love you just love
who you are. And you get to be who you are. Like, what a beauty. Like, we really have such limited time here. Like, even let's say we live to 100. That's such a small time in the span of life. Yeah. Most people don't make it to that. So it's like, let's not waste any time here.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. What are you working on in therapy?
I love therapy. Let me just say, that was another thing growing up, that therapy wasn't really a thing that anyone talked about. Mental health, you know, it was kind of like just pray about it and, you know, give it to God. And, you know, It wasn't really, and I never really had anything where I needed to go to therapy that I had a really wonderful childhood. So I feel really grateful for that. But I want to say it was in 2020, I was having a really hard time. And Hayley has been in therapy and like loves therapy and would talk about how much therapy has helped her. And I'm like, good for you. I got it. I don't need that. I very much had the mentality of like, I was right in everything, like how I handle things, and I can lean more avoidant attached. So that has been very humbling for me in therapy, is like when the therapist is like, yeah, that's not really how we handle that. You know, like, let's try this way. But the thing that therapy has been the most helpful with is mine and Hayley's couples therapist.
Wow.
We communicate so differently.
In what ways?
I'm avoidant attached. She's anxiously attached. So like when we have an argument, she's like, I want to talk about it now. I don't want to go another second without hashing this out. And I'm like, I need space. I need to walk away from this. And then she's like, but why are you leaving me? You know, it's like that battle. And I remember when she mentioned couples therapy, I was like, oh my God, we're breaking up. Like couples therapy is like doomsday to me. Like that's how I thought about couples therapy. I was like, well, if we're doing couples therapy, let's just break up now. Right. Why pay money to go through all this? And she's like, I think it'll just really help us communicate and have like a third party to help navigate these conversations. It is the best thing I've ever done.
Wow.
I literally tell everybody that I know, because at first I was kind of embarrassed. I was like, oh, like, you know, couples therapy, because I had such a view and opinion on it, I thought that that's how everyone viewed it. Mm-hmm. When it finally started helping us so much, I was like, I want to tell every couple I know to do this.
Yeah.
Because, oh my gosh, what a difference. Just to have someone also hold you accountable and also be able to guide conversations and give you tools that we couldn't do on our own.
Yeah.
You know, like we are able to use the tools now, but like when we started, it was like, I just went from 0 to 100 and she went from 0 to 100 in opposite directions. And it was really hard. So I'm learning on how to be confident in who I am, but also know that like I'm not always right. That's the biggest thing for me that I'm always working on, because I grew up with thinking the way I thought was the right way, the way I did things was the right way. Like Hayley will go to, like we'll be moving a table and she'll move it all the way around the room. And I'm like, well, we could have just done right here. And she's like, it's fine. It's still getting done. And I have to be able to be like, you're right. Just because it wasn't the way I would have officially done it. You know, it's like just having that, awareness of another person.
Yeah.
And like not everything needs to be the way that I do it, and like being a team and like coming together and it not always being like my way or the highway, which I didn't realize about myself till I went to therapy. And that's been the hardest part for as going to therapy for me, is that it's hard. Like to grow is hard.
Yeah. Humbling.
And so it's humbling.
Yeah.
And it's not comfortable. Like I don't leave therapy thinking like individual therapy. I don't leave thinking like I'm amazing. I leave being like, I have so much work to do. Yeah. And there's something really nice about that. And there's something really hard about that, because I think people think they'll go to therapy and it'll fix everything. No, it is work.
It's an uphill battle.
Yeah.
That's how I feel too. Every week I'm like, okay, all right, that was good. I'll work on this. Then next week it's like, oh, there's something else. Like, what?
Yeah, it's like life just keeps throwing battles. And there was something so easy about just ignoring it and sweeping under the rug.
Totally.
So that's been the hardest part for me, is just confronting anything.
Yeah.
There's always learning in therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for asking.
We play a game.
Okay.
It's called You Haul or You Ghost. They wear goggles every time they're in a pool, even if it's public.
U-Haul.
U-Haul?
I love the confidence of protecting that retinas. Like if you're not taking care of yourself, who is?
You're like at a beautiful resort in
Put
Bali.
the goggles on, babe. Protect those precious eyes.
I love that.
Yeah. Hayley has sensitive eyes, so...
Goggles it is.
Yeah. I want her to wear goggles.
We know what to get her for her birthday now.
But make them cool. Like, they have some cool goggles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. She cannot pull off a surprise.
I mean, U-Haul, but I'm not telling her anything.
This one bothers me. What if it's like a surprise for you? Do you like a surprise?
I love a surprise, but I'm also not... If it got spoiled, I would assume it's not intentional. You know, it's all about the intention. She's always trying to ruin surprises. That's a red flag. I mean, that's a you ghost. But if she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I said that. Like, my little sisters have done that. It's happened multiple times. I'm from a big family, so surprises have always been kind of tricky.
Yeah.
But I'm really good at surprises, so I'm okay being the good surpriser.
The one that does the surprising.
Yeah.
Okay. Carries a big gallon jug everywhere, like even to restaurants.
Ugh. I would not like it, but we all need to be drinking more water, you know? if you feel like it makes you feel better and you're healthier because you bring your jug of water, so be it, you know? But keep it under the table.
Yeah.
And maybe just let the restaurant refill your water.
So maybe don't bring your jug everywhere.
Yeah, like if it's an emotional support jug, just leave it under the table.
Yes.
And let them do their job by filling up the water. Yeah.
They like put the jug to the, they give the jug to the waiter.
It's probably purified, you know? Probably better than like the tap restaurant water. I'm like, actually, I'd be like, hey, fill up our water. Get the jug. I need a refill.
You're going to see Becca carrying a jug everywhere.
That might be me. That's a U-Haul.
Okay, what about they think The Simpsons predict the future?
Ooh, I hate The Simpsons, so that's a you ghost.
Yeah, I do too. And also, if you're down that rabbit hole, you're probably also down some other weird rabbit holes. Is that a thing? Oh my God.
Oh, I'm not on that TikTok. All I see are mukbangs. I don't Wingstop mostly. Wait, that's a thing?
I'm going to start sending you these TikToks and you're going to be down this rabbit hole.
The Simpsons, the cartoons?
Yeah.
Predict the future?
Mm-hmm. It's like very conspiracy theory vibes that like the Simpsons are in on these big events that are happening.
But they're not real. Like the writers, you mean?
The Simpsons. The actual Simpsons.
The yellow people. Or things. What are they? What are the Simpsons, actually?
Yes, the yellow people.
Yeah, I think I'd be a little weirded out. I don't know. I feel like although I do think there's a lot of stuff we don't know, but The Simpsons is an odd choice.
Yeah.
I'm not putting a lot of faith or trust in The Simpsons.
Okay.
And I'm going to stand by that. So I'm going to say you ghost.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I think that's a right choice.
I do love a good conspiracy, though.
Okay, well, you're going to love The Simpsons one when I send it to you. It's like all these things that happen on The Simpsons then happen in real life. And
well, so then who are we to say it's not true?
Okay, see, now Becca's a believer.
Wait, that's so interesting. Have me back in a few months after I go through the
do the research.
Yeah. Okay. That might be undisclosed answer for now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Do you have any last words?
Follow me. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Well, no, I do. I have a podcast, Scrubbing In with Becca Tilley and Tanya Rad. You can listen to that wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I'm not very active on TikTok, but sometimes.
Perfect.
Becca Tilley.
Becca Tilley.
On both.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank y'all for listening to today's episode. As always, help us spread the gay agenda by writing an Apple review, rating us on Spotify, and sharing it with everyone you've ever met. You can find today's guest at Becca Tilley, our show at Made It Out Podcast, and me at Mal Glowinky. Made It Out is produced and edited by Matilde Jordan and worked on solely by lesbians. The fantasy suite. The fucking fantasy suite. I am a virgin.